So I'm the proud parent of a 12-year-old daughter with a disability. She has Down syndrome, which is the most common chromosomal disorder in America. And just through our experience together, going to medical professionals, have experienced a wide array of disability, discrimination that really is attitudinal in nature, and have experienced it with a number of providers. And often it's just simply, rounding down on her abilities, or what are you worried about? Because she's got Down syndrome anyways. That's how I would sort of chalk it up. We've had some more pointed examples, from the way that geneticists delivered the diagnosis on day one, to examples where a provider will have an intern in the office during an exam with our daughter sitting there, old enough to be aware and cognizant of what they're saying, and then pointing out all of her deficits to the intern, using it as an educational experience and prioritizing that over just her own sense of being. And very, very hurtful. And in talking to a lot of other parents in similar situations with children with special needs, found out that we weren't alone. It was actually pretty common to encounter these attitudinal challenges from clinicians. And I started doing some research and talking to both parents and doctors, and some of the stories I heard from other parents are just horrendous. A friend said that when the OBGYN delivered the diagnosis that her child was going to have Down syndrome, the doctor said, "But don't worry, this kid's gonna ruin your life, but don't worry, in Massachusetts you can abort up to 24 weeks. Just really horrendous. So in studying this and in talking to other clinicians, I found there's a couple things, just best practices that clinicians can do to do a better job. One is not to set expectations, because there's a broad spectrum of outcomes that people with disabilities can have in life, and that's informed by just genetic expression, by clinical and therapeutic interventions, education, parenting, community, just grit, a whole number of variables and so it's dangerous to predict, because you could either set false expectations, false hope on one end, or more likely than not, setting a false ceiling on what they can ultimately achieve. It's important for clinicians to focus also on abilities, not just on disabilities. It's not lost on parents what the disabilities are that they face, or on individuals, but once in a while highlighting the abilities is a positive. Another one is just using person first language. So describing them as a person first and then the condition. So for example, rather than saying, "Hey, that Downs kid," because that's condition first, say, "Hey, that child with Down syndrome." And lastly, and probably the hardest for a lot of medical professionals, is just to admit when they don't know the answer. And so if the last time that they studied a certain disability or condition was in medical school, and that was 25 years ago, and they're unaware of all the advancements in therapies and treatments, and there's a question, they should say, "You know what, I don't know, let me find out and find someone who does." And that's the best way to help. So